Hello, third graders. Welcome back to our online classroom. I hope you guys are having a really fantastic Thursday and doing lots of fun things to grow your body and your brain. Today with our time together, I thought we would do a read aloud, and I've got a very cool one picked out for you. It's called Dear Juno. But before we get started reading this, there is a good reader strategy that you're going to need to use to help you better understand the text, and that's called inferring. We've talked about inferring several times as a class, so I thought we would just review what it means to make an inference or to infer. When we're making an inference, it means we are figuring out something that wasn't completely explained in the text. So a lot of times authors will give us clues and expect us to use what we know in our brains to figure out what's happening instead of just telling us right out. That is called an inference. When you take your background knowledge, which is also called your schema, that's all the things you already know, and you add it to the text evidence, and the text evidence is what you see in the illustrations as well as what you read. When you put the book, the text evidence, plus your brain together, you're making an inference. And when you're making an inference, you're better understanding the text. So let's get started reading, and we'll see if we are able to use some inferences to help us better understand Dear Juno. Dear Juno was written by Soyoung Park and illustrated by Susan Kathleen Hartung. Before we get started reading, we always preview the book, and we do that by looking for the blurb. Sometimes it's on the front inside cover, and sometimes it's in the back. This time it's on the back, so we'll get ready to read by reading the blurb. Juno's grandmother writes in Korean and Juno writes in drawings. But that doesn't mean they can't exchange letters. From the photo his grandmother sends, Juno can tell that she has a new cat. And from the picture he makes for her, a drawing of himself with a plane in the background, Juno's grandmother can tell that he wants her to come for a visit. So she sends Juno an extra special package to let him know something. This tender intergenerational story, intergenerational means more than one generation, is a perfect introduction to the concepts of creative communication. Let's read and see how they creatively communicate. Take a look at the picture. I can see Juno on a tree swing. It's a beautiful tree. Lots of fireflies. Do you see them? Seems like a great night. Juno watched as the red and white blinking lights soared across the night sky like shooting stars and waited as they disappeared into faraway places. Juno wondered where they came from. Can you right now in your own head, what do you think Juno's seeing? The author hasn't told us. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. But we know that he's seeing red and blue lights in the sky, like shooting stars. What could he be talking about? Think about it in your own private head. And let's read and see if we figure it out. He wondered where they were going, and he wondered if any of the planes came from a little town near Seoul where his grandmother lived, and where she ate persimmons, a fruit. She ate persimmons every evening before bed. Friends, did you say that you thought the lights was a plane? You made an inference if you did. Nice job. Go ahead and take a look at the picture. See Juno. He's got a friend, a little doggy friend, and a letter in his hand. Juno looked at the letter that came that day. It was long and white and smudged. He saw the red and blue marks on the edges and knew the letter came from far away. His name and address were neatly printed on the front, so he knew the letter was for him. But best of all, the special stamp on the corner told Juno that the letter was from his grandmother. Remember, the author told us his grandmother lived where? In Seoul. Through the window, Juno could see his parents. He saw bubbles growing in the sink. He saw dirty dishes waiting to be washed. He knew he would have to wait for the cleaning to be done before his parents could read the letter to him. You can see his parents in the kitchen with the dishes. Maybe I can read the inside too, Juno said to his dog, Sam. That's Sam. I wonder if he calls him Sammy for short, Spark. Sam wagged his tail very carefully. Juno opened the envelope. Inside, he found a letter folded into a neat, small square. He unfolded it. Tucked inside were a picture and a dried flower. Juno looked at the letters and words. He couldn't understand. He pulled out the photograph. It was a picture of his grandmother holding a cat. He pulled out the red and yellow flower. It felt light and gentle, like a dried leaf. Juno smiled. Come on, Sam, Juno said. Let's find Mom and Dad. So I can see in the picture that he's got a letter here, and I can see, get you a little closer, that the language Grandma's writing in is Korean, and there's a picture of Grandma with the cat and a dried flower. I wonder why Juno smiled. Grandma has a new cat, Juno said, as he handed the letter to his mother. And she's growing red and yellow flowers in her garden. How do you know she has a new cat? Juno's father asked. She wouldn't send me a picture of a strange cat, said Juno. I guess not, said Juno's father. How do you know the flowers from her garden? Asked Juno's mother. She wouldn't send me a flower from someone else's garden, Juno answered. No, she wouldn't, said Juno's mother. Then Juno's mother read him the letter. You guys, do you see what Juno's doing? He can't read the words, but he's already trying to figure out what's happening. In other words, Juno is making inferences. He's trying to figure out, based on the clues that he has and things he already knows about who his grandmother is, to figure out what's in the letter. Let's see if he was correct. Dear Juno, how are you? I have a new cat to keep me company. I named him Juno after you. He can't help me weed, but the rabbits no longer come to eat my flowers. Grandma. Just like you read it yourself, Juno's father said. I did read it, Juno said. Yes, you did, said his mother. So although Juno didn't really read the words, he used what he knew to make an inference and figure out what Grandma was trying to tell him. At school, Juno showed his class his grandmother's picture and the dried flower. His teacher even pinned the letter to the board. All day long, Juno kept peeking at the flower from his grandmother's garden. He didn't have a garden that grew flowers, but he had a swinging tree. Juno looked at the letter pinned to the board. Did his grandmother like getting letters too? Yes, Juno thought, she likes getting letters just like I do. So Juno decided to write one. Good readers also ask questions, and I'm wondering, how is Juno going to write a letter to his grandmother when he doesn't write in Korean? Let's find out. After school, Juno ran into his backyard. He picked a leaf from the swinging tree, the biggest he could find. Juno found his mother, who was sitting at her desk. He showed her the leaf. I'm going to write a letter, he told her. I'm sure it will be a very nice letter, she answered, and gave him a big yellow envelope. Yes, it will, Juno said. And then he began to draw. See Juno picking the flower, and the author just answered my question. The author just said that Juno's going to draw. And here you go. You can see all the beautiful pictures Juno is drawing for his grandma. First, he drew a picture of his mom and dad standing outside the house. Second, he drew a picture of Sam playing underneath his big swinging tree. Then, very carefully, Juno drew a picture of himself standing under an airplane in a starry nighttime sky. After he was finished, he placed everything in the envelope. Here's my letter, Juno announced proudly. Oh, announced is another good word when said is dead. Here's my letter, Juno announced proudly. You can read it if you want. Juno's father looked in the envelope. He pulled out the leaf. Only a big swinging tree could grow a leaf like this big, he said. Juno's mother pulled out one of the drawings. What a fine picture, she said. It takes a good artist to say so much with a drawing. Juno's father patted Juno on the head. It's just like a real letter, he said. It is a real letter, Juno said. It certainly is, said his mother, and they mailed the envelope and waited. You can see Grandma getting the letter. She's got, oh, look at that cute cat. Kind of looks like Lulu. One day, I can infer that some time has passed because in the beginning, he was sitting outside in the nighttime. He didn't look too very cold. He wasn't shivering or anything. He just had on a long sleeve t-shirt. But here, he's all bundled up. The leaves are changing. He's got on a hat and a scarf and a big old coat. It's definitely fall. One day, a big envelope came. It was from Juno's grandmother. This time, Juno didn't wait at all. He opened the envelope right away. Inside, Juno found a box of colored pencils. He knew she wanted another letter. Next, he pulled out a picture of his grandmother. He noticed she was sitting with a cat and 2 kittens. He thought for a moment and laughed. Grandma's cat was a girl. Then he pulled out a small toy plane. Juno smiled. His grandmother was coming to visit. Wow, Juno figured out a lot of things just from the stuff that his grandmother put inside the envelope. For instance, he learned that she wanted another letter. He knew that because she sent him drawings. I wonder how he figured out that she was coming to visit, though. What do you think? Think about it. We'll answer that question later. Take a look at Juno and Sam in bed. Maybe she'll bring her cat when she comes to visit, Juno said to Sam as he climbed into bed. Maybe you two will be friends. Soon Juno was fast asleep, and when he dreamed that night, he dreamed about a faraway place, a village just outside Seoul, where his grandmother, whose gray hair sat on top of her head like a powdered donut, was sipping her morning tea. The cool air feels crisp against her cheek. Good sensory word. Crisp enough to crackle. He dreams like the golden leaves which color the persimmon garden. What a beautiful story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I really love the relationship that Juno has with his grandmother. Okay, so I have a couple questions for you. So what you're gonna need to do is go ahead and pause the video, and after you do that, go get a pencil and your journal. Turn to your next blank page and write the date. Pause the video, go get your journal. Welcome back. I have 3 questions for you today that I would like you to answer about Dear Juno. The first question says, even though Juno could not read Korean, he found a way to communicate with his grandmother. What did he do? Now, when you answer this question in your journal, you don't have to rewrite the question, but I would like you to use part of the question in your answer just like we've been practicing. So instead of writing out the whole question, you could say, Juno figured out a way to communicate with his grandmother by, and then tell me the text evidence that you found that helps you know how he communicates with Grandma. Question 2 says, how do you think Grandma felt when she got Juno's letter? So think back to when Grandma got Juno's letter. I don't have any text from the author, but the illustrator is helping us figure it out. So when you answer this question, how you think Grandma felt when reading Juno's letter, be sure to use text evidence. And again, when you answer the question, you don't have to rewrite the whole question, but you could write, when Grandma got Juno's letter, she felt blank because blank. Last question, I'm going to ask you to make an inference. How do you think Juno knew his grandma was coming to visit? So think back to when Juno got the package from his grandmother. How did he figure out she was coming to visit? Again, when you answer this question, no need to rewrite the whole question. Just use a part of the question in your answer. For instance, you could say, when Juno got the package, he knew Grandma was coming to visit because. Okay, those are your 3 questions. I'll show you again, and you can pause the video and go in and answer all 3 in your journals. Okay, thank you very much. I can't wait to read your responses to these questions. Thanks for joining me in a wonderful book. Happy Thursday. Read a lot today. I'll talk soon. Bye.